The British Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, today conceded that the pandemic could have been handled differently in hindsight, saying that the government did not fully understand the virus early on. It took some weeks and months to get to grips with it. He's not alone amongst leaders who are already now looking and trying to learn the lessons. Some will be related to public health. Others, like Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum, Davos, to you and me, believes that this is a moment when we can look forward to what he calls the Great Reset, a chance to put right many of the wrongs and social inequalities that we had before the pandemic. So, what will change look like?
Exactly. What I did in the book is to describe the situation and all the consequences. I didn't offer yet solutions or policies for the post-corona time. What has to start now is a global mobilization process engaging all stakeholders, business leaders, politicians, civil society, to think and to reflect about how do we create and construct a future which is learning from the mistakes which we made, because the corona crisis has put into evidence quite some dysfunctionality of our present system.
Right, so let's talk about that dysfunctionality. What's for you is the most significant part of the dysfunctionality?
I think two elements. The first one is the lack of equity, I mean the gap, which we see nationally, but also internationally, and with all the negative impacts the virus has, this gap will increase, and we see already the first signs of social unrest. And second, we have, of course, the environment, and the environmental climate change may create the next crisis, similar to, I would say, even more serious compared to what we see now with corona.
Let's take China, where this thing supposedly began, and the lack, arguably, of transparency of the Chinese in those early days to either recognize or to report or to deal with the rest of the world. If we are starting from such a lack of trust and faith, why should any inquiry, or why would you be hopeful that we can, I know I'm being pessimistic, I realize I'm being pessimistic, but I'm being realistic, where I would suggest you're being optimistic.
You have to be optimistic. I mean, I have grandchildren. I enjoyed a very good life. It was a golden season in some way. And I do not accept that we cannot do our part in order to ensure for our children and grandchildren at least the same level of quality of life as we have enjoyed, always recognizing that there are still also today many parts of society which are left behind.
So who do you think, your book, is it a clarion call to have some form of structured reflection, which perhaps, or is it more an individualistic, organizational, everybody needs to do it?
Yes, it provides everybody with, I think, sufficient arguments. If you are a government or an individual, it's a call for action. And what the forum wants to do, we don't have the solutions, but we want to be a platform for getting everybody mobilized into a process of designing our future. The future is not happening. The future is depending on us.
But if you have, and I understand that you're talking about a much greater issue than next year's or this year's presidential election or whatever, you're talking about almost an existential crisis and potential solution. But everything is governed by the geopolitical realities of what's possible. And in the poisoned well of China, US, EU, this, that, and the other, is it possible?
It has to be possible. And when we look at the virus again, It has just demonstrated how interdependent we are in the world. And I hope also politicians who now naturally are defending national interests, because in a situation of crisis as we have now, you become individually and nationally much more egoistic. Now we have to overcome this barrier, and we have to remind everybody again, look, only through collaboration you will secure your own individual and national future.
Finally, will we be all getting together up a mountain in January? Is it still your hope to have us all in person?
It's still my hope. I think what the world needs is a big global summit just devoted to the Great Reset. If it cannot be, I pray that it may happen physically. If not, I think we have to use the modern technology to achieve the same objective.
If they are there in January, we will be there too, up the mountain in Davos. After